are talking about older kids, their development, so there are something called developmental needs also. So based on your age, like younger kids, we knew that they're eager to please. So they, even if they don't like it, they're going to go along.
Yes.
Now the need is very different for older children. So they want to form their own identity. They are able to tolerate ambiguity, little gray area. So its world is not black and white. So there's going to be more, questioning, more testing, like Seema said, because that is appropriate. So it's really important to recognize that this is normal and this is part of the journey. That, now parenting, your role as a parent is now shifting from giving directions to now becoming a collaborator.
Hi everyone, we're back with episode 2 of our talk with Parul Sharma, our expert psychologist in imperfect parenting and counseling, and a counselor. She's been a counselor for over 15 years, has worked both in the US and in India, and continues to counsel in India despite living in the US now. So thank you once again, Parul, for joining us. We want to continue with our conversation about imperfect parenting and the psychological effects that the pandemic, as well as general adolescent issues that children are having. The last session, we talked about children below the ages of 10, 11 years old. And now we zoom out into children, adolescents who are hitting puberty, teenagers, and young adults, and their specific issues. So welcome again, Parul, and Seema, of course, my wonderful co-host.
In fact, I wanted to just sort of recap a couple of things that I can't get over, because they were beautiful things that you said. One was about the point of value-based parenting, which maybe you can talk about again. And the second is about the 5 C's for the younger children. Which I think some parts of it will probably apply and spill over into the adult ages also. But welcome back, Parul, and we're so happy and excited to talk about this segment specifically because our children are in that category.
Correct. And so thank you so much, Deepma and Seema, for giving me this opportunity. Yes, so I think I'm also in the same boat because I'm a mother of 2 children. My son is in college and my daughter is in high school. So this is something that I've observed more closely and have experienced clinically and personally. So this is something close to my heart.
Right.
Wonderful. So let's start out with a quick recap. You talked about value-based parenting, where you said, as opposed to positive parenting, because positive parenting brings that pressure of constantly putting a good spin on everything. And children are going to have bad days. Parents are going to have bad days. We're going to be angry. We're going to be disappointed, both sides. And so I love the idea of parenting by bringing our children into the journey of parenting, saying, what are our values? Let's figure them out. Let's put out 5 values and then let's live by them. And if there's ever any conflict, like we talked about, digital as well as the other, other stuff, if there's ever any conflict, we can go back to our value and say, what does the value say? And I love that about what you talked.
Yeah. So like parenting, positive parenting can get exhausting. I think that's the reason it's not sustainable, because we can't be positive all the time. And if we try to be, it's going to be, unrealistic and exhausting, like I said earlier. So I always tell parents to have like a value-based parenting, and where we have like not more than 4 or 5 values which are fixed, that are not negotiable. So you know where you stand in terms of your values, and they're broadly defined so that there is room for negotiation and flexibility. It's not like rigid dogma kind of thing. Okay, this is how we do it, because each family is going to have its own value system, and between your parents and us and the grandparents, there's going to be a certain sub values also. So there's going to be room for growth. It's not rigid. So we keep few of them, like, which are core to our family, and we want to honor them. And the others values can be flexible, so we know where we stand. So as parents, we want to be, consistent and clear about what is it that we think is important, but there is always room for dialogues. But certain things are sacred. Like if honesty is something that's important, then we want to cultivate that, because that is how you're going to make decisions, no matter where you are. Whether you're because now we have all lived, both places. We have lived in the US, we have lived in the India. So, and our children are also going to be traveling around. So it's no longer like we are going to be global citizens, all of us. So
very true.
we are going to have global challenges.
Correct.
So we need some anchoring. At the same time, we want some freedom to navigate the new challenges that will come, like the pandemic, which none of us knew. So we have all adapted.
Yes. And I think this age group that we are addressing now, there's going to be a lot more pushing of the boundaries. There's going to be a lot more challenging situations where it's not like, the small baby or a child who's like less than 10, you can give them a bribe, or you can give them a cookie, or you can, you can hold them and, they'll calm down. But now we are reaching the point where the children have they are becoming more and more assertive. They are becoming more independent, which is where we want them to be. And there is going to be some resistance. But I think that if you had started off with a value-based parenting, then maybe they were by this stage very clear, okay, I know if I push this, my mom is not going to agree, or my dad is not going to agree.
Correct. But so I have a question
based on...
No, go ahead, please.
Okay. So now, because now we are talking about older kids, their development, so there are something called developmental needs also. So based on your age, like younger kids, we knew that they're eager to please. So even if they don't like it, they're going to go along. Now the need is very different for older children. So they want to form their own identity. They are able to tolerate ambiguity, little gray area. So its world is not black and white. So there's going to be more, questioning, more testing, like Seema said, because that is appropriate. So it's really important to recognize that this is normal and this is part of the journey, that, now parenting, your role as a parent is now shifting from giving directions to now becoming a collaborator. So it is now be collaborative. It's not going to be like, I said so now you do this. It's not going to be like
and
that.
It's a very hard switch now, because we are so into the instructions.
Absolutely.
Trying to
so it's exactly. So it's a shift for you as a parent and shift for your child, because the child whom you could go and cuddle, like you said earlier, is now resistant to physical contact. So how do you reach out? Because some of us are more communicative physically, like we want to physically hug them and kiss them and things like that. And it may not be happening now, because they're like, okay, back off. So this is a new arena but here's the good news, both of us are new to the arena. And so we are going to now, when we are diving into it, so there's something called, I like to call the reach approach. So when we are talking about reach, first thing is realistic expectations. We want to be realistic, that if we think it's going to be, it's going to have its challenges, there's going to be testing. If the child was testing earlier, it's not like they're going to test less, they're going to test maybe more. So we need to be able to tolerate that questioning, that stance that we're going to take. We are going to also about digital media, like I said earlier, this is something that's entered new into the arena, and now it's overpowering. So it is nothing is good or bad. It's how we are going to interact, or how we are using that technique or technology is the thing.
But
we need to know
a lot of parents using this thing as an excuse. The only power I have over my children, because see, now I like what you said, that you are no longer, now you're becoming a collaborator. But still a lot of parents make this mistake where they say, if you don't do this, I will take your phone away. If you don't do this, then I will cut down your internet accessibility or whatever. So we can no longer have a dialogue with our children in that tone, right? Can we do that anymore?
In fact, that brings me to the question. Let me go ahead and ask that question that one of our parents had sent in, because it brings me exactly to that. You are talking about reach, you're talking about leeway. Right? We're entering the arena where we need to give them a little bit of leeway. We need to invite them into decision making. So the parent is asking now, how do we use reward versus punishment based parenting? I understand that positive reinforcement is better than negative reinforcement. However, teenagers do tend to make me angry. My teenager tends to make me angry and does throw as many tantrums as my 11-year-old.
Yes.
So how do I handle these tantrums without punishing, or is punishing okay?
Okay, so that's so the question is very nice, and this is again giving an insight into one of the parenting challenge that we are facing now. Earlier it was easier to give rewards and punishments, and now we have evolved. So so this new arena where we are stepping in, we don't look at rewards and punishment, we look at choices and consequences. So it's a different way of looking things. Because it's not like I want to bribe you, because yes, it's effective in short term, but it's going to eventually not going to come and bite me back. So we want to explain to them. So, and teenagers are at the right space based on the younger teenagers like 12 and 13 will have different kind of understanding about choices versus the older teenager. So it's something that they can carry all throughout their life. So it's about choices, that we'll always have choices. What kind of choice do I want to make? So either I make choice because I have knowledge, or I have lack of knowledge, or sometimes not making a choice. Okay, I'll just see how it goes. We can be in limbo. Unfortunately, not making a choice is also making a choice, because there is the consequences coming.
Is there?
That is the important thing. We need to educate our children that the consequence is coming. And secondly, they might be like, okay, because they're young, they can be a bravado. Yes, it's okay, I'll deal with the consequences.
I'll be fine.
I'll handle it.
I'll handle it.
Yes. But what they miss out is that the consequence is not going to be of your choice or the one you're expecting. So you may be thinking, okay, I don't study for the test and I may fail the test. There might be another consequence that, the teacher was extremely harsh, or I felt embarrassed. All my friends did it and I didn't do it. That is not a consequence that they thought or counted out.
They thought of.
So they can be. Yeah. So they can be, because at this time, peer pressure is also real. It's real and it's relevant, because now as you're becoming older, you want to spend time more with teenagers, with other teenagers. You want to form your identity, and that is appropriate, because that is going to be how you're going to form your identity among your peers and carry over values and traits from your parents, but your own person also. And you're trying to figure out who that person is going to be. You're not going to be a cookie cutter. Nobody wants to be a cookie cutter of mom or dad in teenager years. They want to move away. They want to be having a new,
as
unique
different as possible.
Yes, as opposite in that. So if mom is this end, I want to be on the other end, or dad is on this end, I want to be on the opposite end. So we want to recognize that there is something called choices, and there are going to be consequences. And how aware are you when you're making those choices? Now, in terms of like digital media and all that, in the US, for parents who are raising kids here, how we do teenager driving here. When you're learning to drive, you have to do so many hours with parents and behind the wheel during daytime, nighttime, and then gradually you go and give your license test and you acquire that license to drive and you drive around. Parenting is also similar. So we are training them at the time. So we are going to train them for different environments. So before the training starts, we have lecturing. So where we are giving information. So when it comes to digital media or digital technology, we want to first give the do's and don'ts, rules and regulations. So when someone, like for example, a teenager wants to have a social media account, it's not something blanket. That this is something, okay, you want to, open it. Definitely, let's have a discussion around it. What does it involve? What are the lay of the land? How much time? Who all are there? What kind of material are we going to put? So these kind of conversations are very important to have to begin with. And then you say, okay, once you have explained the rules and things like that, then you also talk about, okay, now trust. So now that I have the social media, it's again very relative to each family. Each family can make their own decisions. Some families where children are open to it, they say, okay, trust is, you trust me and I'll be fine. You have to be the parent. So you have to really understand and ask them that, okay, is it something blanket trust am I giving, or is it conditional trust?
Because what is the consequence of breaking that trust, right?
Yes.
There's another question that a father asked, which is very related. So I'll just say it. The dad said that, I never talked to girls, or I never did drugs, or I never did alcohol because I was afraid that my father would beat me up.
Yes.
Now, how do I use punishment for my child if you are saying that I should not be doing negative punishment? That was a very interesting, there's a whole long paragraph, but I just got the...
So like I said, punishment is an outdated format because it's more punitive and it makes you feel bad. And depending on the personality, either you will succumb or you will rebel against it. Consequences, there are 3 rules to consequences. It has to be immediate, it has to be logical, it has to be fair. When you think of them in those terms, it makes your job as a parent much easier. So you also discuss consequences that, thinking that, okay, my child is not, like in this case, the father saying my daughter talking to boys, if that's a concern, it's unreal because it is going to happen. They are going to, because they are already interacting at school. They are going to interact in workplace. So they are going to inhabit a world where they are going to interact. How to maintain boundaries?
Yes.
That is the
I
thing
think that's what he's asking. Is that I'm so afraid because they're constantly interacting. I'm so afraid, will they maintain those boundaries?
Yes. So that is something that you talk to your teenager beforehand, that, okay, what boundaries how will you maintain boundaries? How does it get not overboard? So we limit our time. So we are saying, okay, if you're going to do it for younger kids, especially when initially they're starting, we recommend that have the, a screen or laptop in a common area rather than like, okay, in isolation. That, okay, go, I'm going to do it in my room in privacy, because we can make choices. People will test because they might think, okay, it's just something that you're saying. Because like I said, if you think of in driving, you're going to make mistakes.
Correct.
So you have that understanding.
You have to be reasonable. You have to be very reasonable about what. It cannot be illogical. It has to have some kind of logic.
That's where the beauty of, I think, imperfect parenting comes up, where we don't try to show ourselves as having been perfect. Like if we say, when I did that, and then I lied to my mom about it because she was strict. So I used to lie, but our value is honesty. So, I don't want you to do that kind of thing, right? Because I know with my children, that's exactly what has happened. Is we actually went into consequences and we said, I will trust you, okay? But if I find you breaking that trust, then I get your password. I have to get your password, or I have to be able to follow you on social media. And Seema and I remember we both joined Facebook when our daughter went onto Facebook.
Exactly.
We are the stalker moms.
Absolutely. So it's we like you said, we discuss the consequences also when that boundary is broken. We understand that, okay, this is what's going to happen. And another thing is we give it a time bound also, because sometimes some children will not tolerate. They'll think, okay, now you're going to be behind their back for the rest of their life, or for the rest of, because for the rest of the life is like next 1 month or 1 year is the rest of their life. So we want to say, okay, it is conditional and it's going to be time bound. And if it happens again, then again same thing happens. And then we have in place what are the consequences, like like how if you do drunk driving, you lose your license after 3 DUI.
Correct.
So the same thing that we talk about, that okay, this is what still there are going to be some teenagers who are going to be sneaky about it.
Yes.
And when that happens, it's really important to understand what is it they are trying to do. Not the behavior, like they broke the rule, but what is the thing? Are they feeling inadequate as a person, that they want to reach out secretively? What is going on? So
maybe there's some social pressure or peer pressure is there.
Peer pressure. Yeah. So you want
to understand, just being sneaky because they want to push the boundary and they want to right.
So some amount of pushing is acceptable, but after the consequences, if you're repeatedly pushing the boundaries, then bigger issues. So we really want to understand what's going on. So have that space and dialogue with them where you understand what is going on, what's happening. And either one of the parent, so you can give them choice, like, would you like to discuss, because sometimes they might want to say, okay, I want to talk only to mom, because they might feel like mom may understand better, or maybe dad can understand better, or maybe they say, I don't think so. Then that's when a mental health expert can also come in and say, okay, why don't you talk to someone, because you will need some clarity, some guidance. So you don't have to solve this on your own. So let's talk about how can because you need to talk to someone you trust.
So, but at what point should a parent take a decision that, you know what, it's time to talk to a mental health expert? It's time to now. This is getting to the point where we whatever we say, however much we understand, how many consequences are being there, it's kind of going a little bit out. And sometimes it's just easier to talk to somebody who is not there, right? It's
a third person.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that was one of our questions as well, is that, first of all, the stigma has gone away, right? In our generation, if you went and talked to a mental health expert, you were nuts. That's why you went and talked to someone.
Absolutely.
But now the stigma is gone. We are all educated enough to understand that importance of talking to a third person. But when is that? When is that thing where, ये अभी out of hand हो गया, अभी मैं नहीं control कर पा रही हूँ, मैं किसी और को, or are we just
and to be fair to the parents, I mean, it's not easy. I think it's not easy, because you're going to be pushed so much more. You are the, I love this example that I always talk about, where you are the driver of the vehicle and your children are the passengers. And then when they grow up, the role reverses and they go in the driver's seat. And it is very difficult. It's a very tough time for the parent, because they now have to pull away from becoming that parent to the collaborator. And there's a lot of conflict that is going on. You're being pushed every single day. Every day there's a new challenge. And then eventually you're so exasperated, but you go to somebody else and you talk to them.
Exactly.
But when is that point, Parul? When do you recognize that point?
So first you want to see how much, like, I'm talking just exclusively about digital media. If the frequency is very high, now there's no number I want to give from because of the pandemic, they are going to spend more time. So we want to divide the time. So we want to divide time on, school internet is very different than recreational. So if they're spending a lot of time on the recreational internet, which is challenging, because it's hard to track. But parents can have a rough idea that, when they are, not doing schoolwork. So you can get a sense. So if the frequency is very high, then the intensity when you say no, if they're having a very strong reaction. Teenagers tend to have strong reactions, but this can be more than the typical. Each parent knows their child's range, that they are dramatic. So some of them are dramatic. So okay, this is thing, but more than usual. So when you're having that, and when you see their grades or their social life suffering, this is one of the indicator. Like I said earlier in the last session, the 3 arenas is where children perform, which is their school, or that's their work environment, then their family, and then socially. So when you start seeing problems in all the 3 arenas or 2 arenas, it's time to reach out to a mental health expert. Secondly is when you can see physically deterioration in terms of their physical health. You can see, either the eating is going too much or becoming too less. The sleep is going too much or becoming less. So those are some of the signs that give you an insight that, hey, something is off.
So we had an interesting episode in my household where there was a couple of podcasts that I listened to, where they were talking about how digital technology, the mobile phone, is becoming like a dopamine, where it's giving you that instant gratification, that constant seeking the pleasure. We were talking
Yes.
about in the last episode where there has to be a balance between pleasure and pain, where too much of
Absolutely.
any one thing can actually
Yes.
completely
Yes.
throw you off balance, and then it can
Yes.
lead to depression, stress, and anxiety, which is
Yes.
what a lot of children are seeing
Yes.
with. And I think I kind of noticed that in my own daughter, where
Yeah.
I felt she was becoming very withdrawn, very quiet.
Yes.
Then one day
Yes.
after listening to that podcast, I kind of talked to her and I said, you know what, do you know how bad this is? And we saw the social,
Mhm.
if people haven't seen it, it's on Netflix, it's called
Yes.
Social Dilemma. Must see, because you realize that it's not just about looking at one more video, one more, Snapchat or Instagram or whatever, but it is causing a lot of anxiety in our children. And then we
Yes.
decided mutually that I will
Yes.
take the phone away for the whole day, and then end of the day,
Yes.
she can take a look at it. And
Yes.
within 3 days, and I'm not joking, in 3 days, I saw a complete change in her body language. She was
Yes.
happier, more talkative, communicative,
Right.
wanting to do new things. And I'm like thinking, oh my God, if we had not made this observation,
Yes.
this could have gone in a very dangerous path, So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, like you said, these the technology, when you're using it well, it's beneficial, but there is a darker side to it.
There is.
And that's where the concern is, because unfortunately the rules are not explicit.
Correct.
For that area. So we think it's not a big deal because everybody is on it. So we think we have the group mentality that it's probably safe. And it is safe if you use it within limits. Now, that is the main thing, that anything unlimited, whether it's food, shopping, now it's the digital media. Earlier, if you remember, our parents would have issues with television. They would say, okay, too much TV is going to ruin your brain. So this is another form that we are now faced with.
Even
so
alcohol, for that matter, right?
Yes, absolutely.
The children do grow
alcohol,
up
drugs. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, children do grow up seeing parents having a legal drug, which is alcohol, and they have to learn then to navigate what's too much, right?
Exactly. And here is another part of it. They also need to assign someone to be in charge, because we are programmed to keep things diminished or undermine or underestimate the darker side of it, because that's how we are going to be surviving. That's something that if the teenager starts behaving like a 50-year-old, sees threat everywhere, they are not going to go out and venture. So it's developmentally appropriate. So what you want is some safeguards in terms of some person like you trust to give you feedback that, hey, this is going overboard, because it's really important to have that checks and balances. Because we think we have it under control, but it's not. And yes, and second thing is the challenges. These things, because they are very insidious, especially digital media, you can do it without anyone looking over your shoulders. It can really undermine a lot of things. So the threat level is much lower. We are not perceiving it as a threat. So that's why it's insidious, and it has deep lasting impacts, because now, thanks to technology, we know that things are changing, even though physically there may not be any signs. Internally it's changing.
But there's also
the chemicals are changing and things like that.
There is a bit of a dependence on, like, for example, when we were young and we were disappointed because, oh, today I didn't do well in my test. So somehow we kind of got over it and we were able to move on. I'm finding that teenagers today, if they are disappointed about something, if something did not go their way, they are not able to deal with it. And their only solution is that let me go towards pleasure, which is either too much of digital technology, too much of maybe drugs. I mean, there are lots of different dopamines that they are seeking, where they're handling that. They can see, like, I remember my daughter once said, I can see the disappointment in your eyes, and that's disturbing me a lot. So how do we help our children deal with disappointment, deal with failures? How do we tell them that it's okay? That you don't have to be perfect. So
I think one of the important thing is, like you said, we were able to deal with it. I think partly we were lucky because we didn't have access to all this.
Correct.
So we need to keep it in mind, because if we had access, maybe we would have done it.
We would have done it too.
So it's really important to remember that,
we used to hide under the blanket with a book and a torch because we were not allowed to read after some time.
Absolutely.
For us, it was, oh, we'll read one more Enid Blyton or something like that.
Exactly. So the access is different. So I think we need to understand that humans, human beings are wired. We want to avoid pain. Nobody in their right senses wants to say, okay, I want to go through something painful. So it is, I'm not trying to, justify it, but it's a rite of passage. This is a thing that we are going to be compelled with. Yes. Now, how very important is we understand that being disappointed or going through struggle is normal, and it may feel like it's everlasting, but it is just not. You will be able to get it to minimal level. You can't eliminate it. I think that's the thing. What these gadgets or these tools that are there, like alcohol, drugs, anything, we think they are going to remove these pains from us and take it away. What we want to reiterate is that having little pain, disappointment, and not like, that's the reason why I don't like to say it's positive emotions and negative emotions, because then you want to avoid negative and we go towards positive emotions. So these are flavors of life. They are going to be there. We want to keep them at a level where we can function. We can feel overwhelmed with disappointment or sadness or anger. We can't sustain it. So this will pass too. So we having that tolerance to go through it, not avoid it, because that's what most of the people want to do. They want to avoid so they are shifting towards pleasure and don't want to go through it. But sometimes occasionally it's okay. So what I tell parents is, like how I said, the reach technique. So we had realistic expectation. Now engaging offline. So sometimes when you're feeling disappointed, don't give in to the urge. The first time you're disappointed or the second time. Initially, our willpower is good. Our self-control is better. Let's not reach out at that time to a technology. Let's reach out to a living. And then later on, yes. Because sometimes you want to share with friends. So it's not like, yes and no. It's like, let's not give in to the urge immediately.
Yeah, because that's again the pain-pleasure balance, right? If you keep keeping on looking at the technology, your pleasure will go off for some time. But again, then it will trigger off the stress.
Because you're now stressed. Now, every time what it does is it's not only helping you at this time, it's just planting, it's promising you that you can rely on it consistently.
Yes.
So we want to not give in to the urge initially. Let's reach out to other avenues also. So very important that we find that engagement. So we create that space that, okay, this is a space where we can go to unwind without technology. So we can have, like earlier I said, material, like any creative material. So anything like coloring and things like that. Or maybe just vegetate, or maybe have some books which are inspirational, not the books that you want to, fiction, like something which is inspirational. So reality based. So they can be stories around where, you initially they may not reach out to it, even if they are in this space. But over a period of time,
they'll learn
out of curiosity, they're going to open the book and say, or maybe read the back page of it. Okay, it's another, because initially they might reject and say, okay, it's another gyan from the parent.
Right.
They're manipulating me. So, so they may not do it. But as long as they're in the space, it's a win for a parent. And after that, anything else is a bonus. So if they reach out and maybe read the back of it, because we need real people. We need real stories, because they are far more powerful than these real stories. So I want to tell teenagers that
real
move from
real
real to real person. It's important.
Very true.
Yeah. And so then we reach to the
it's an acronym. I didn't realize that.
It's an acronym. So we realistic expectations, then engagement, then A is the appreciation. Appreciate. So either the parent or the family member or someone appreciates, or you also write down what are your strengths. Because we forget, we think we are not doing this well, that well.
Yeah.
Let's appreciate, acknowledge what we are capable of, because it's really important to remember that, yes, this thing maybe I'm struggling with, but I have these things also going well.
Strengths.
So you get a balanced view about yourself, or you get feedback from parents that, hey, this is something, you might be struggling with. Yeah, it's there. It may feel like a big psychological distress for a teenager, that when they see, like, maybe for girls, like, other girls are more thinner and they are not. And so you acknowledge the pain, you acknowledge that, yes, maybe, if you feel it, it's some part of it perception, but how are you assessing it? So we get into the conversation. Okay, do you feel okay? Is it clothes wise, or because we want to talk about body types, like it's okay, and fitness. Do you have fitness? So are you fit?
Healthy.
And then yes, so then you say, okay, what you want to do is you want to build yourself from inside out. So earlier, if you remember, a lot of us grew up without putting too much cosmetic, because there was all this cosmetic which would do harm for you. But now the evolution has happened, so some cosmetics enhance, or they're natural, so some self-care is okay.
It's okay.
So we
so
find
that you open up that avenue to conversation.
Correct.
What are the things that are wonderful about it, right?
Yes.
And how can we enhance that?
Exactly. And so we balance it, that yes, and some things you might feel lousy, I cannot do it, and you acknowledge that as a parent, that this is something that is a struggle. No matter what I say, it's not going to take away that pain, and this is something that you are going to struggle. How you want to struggle, so they will figure out. Sometimes for some days it may not do, but if it's happening for a prolonged period of time, then it's important that we call in an expert.
So we are kind of acknowledging that they are going through what they are going through, and that this can't just brush it off. We have to acknowledge that it exists.
Yes.
And sometimes I love what Seema says always, where what you appreciate, what do you say? What you appreciates.
Exactly.
Right? And that's amazing, because then you look at your positives. These are all the things that are great about
this is also a part.
I'm not a size 0, but
we talk to a lot of adults about affirmations, which is where you are positively programming yourself, because fortunately or unfortunately, the fact is that we are all going to deal with some problems or the other in our lives, especially when you are a teenager and you're going through this phase where you're entering this very new phase of your life. You're going to go to college. You have all these expectations that are being dumped on you. You are still very fragile mentally, where your prefrontal cortex is not yet formed, and you are not yet competent enough to see the consequences of everything you do. The child is in a very fragile state, and I think that parents, they need to acknowledge what they are experiencing, what they're feeling, but at the same time, we should, as parents, push our children to practice some form of affirmations, where you convert, you kind of change all your negative self-talk into positive self-talks.
I think here I would just catch, because sometimes it may not be. Sometimes you just can't flip something.
You can't, and then that point you just acknowledge that it exists.
Okay. Correct. So I think what we want to do is we want to recognize that, hey, there are certain struggles, there are positive strength. Some struggles I can, overcome. Some I can't, and that's okay, because human life or human journey is full of that.
Yeah, because everything cannot be turned into something positive. It is what it is. Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe it is, and also remember that it may be something that is time bound. Maybe this is a phase.
It won't last for very long. Yeah.
So very important that we give that concept of time, that, just because I'm like this, life is not linear. Very important. A lot of us think in terms of being it linear, that okay, now A has come, B has come, so now C and D are coming. No, I don't know what tomorrow is coming. So just today, how am I going to do the best I can?
Correct.
That's it. It may be a good day. Today, no matter what I try, I may not be able to do anything good. And it's okay. What I want to catch is, I don't want to have a lot of days like that. I'm having a lot of bad days. That's when I need to, again, reach out. And like you said, the the prefrontal cortex for young teenagers, it's not developed. Earlier the science showed that it was developed by the age of 18. Now we are realizing it is not. It is by the age of 24. So they are not able to make those kind of decisions where it's like black and white kind of thing. I'll sit and look through pros and cons. Sometimes we have to look at it in a way of risk and rewards.
Correct.
We have to look in those, so we are shifting. Yeah. Correct. So what are the risks? Yeah, it's not that you should not have bad days, but the risk is if you have more of it, then you're going to find it hard to come out of it.
I think it's very good to have this caution of realism, that
yes,
that let's be real. Everything is not always going to be perfect. Everything is not always going to be your way. There will be some, it's like you said, it's not linear. It's not A following B and B following C.
Exactly.
It doesn't work like that always. Yeah.
Exactly. So that comes to the next point. Is the fourth point is the challenge. So challenge your own beliefs about yourself, about the world. Look at it and don't look at challenges as like a problem. Let's take a bite of it. Let's not talk about, okay, maybe I'm like a person who's getting like 60%. Yeah. And that's my challenge. What is my immediate goal? Or what's my immediate step? That's all my goal is. That, okay, I just need to take care of the immediate thing. So very small steps, baby steps. And remember that it's a process. It's not like, okay, you're going to want to have magical transformations. We want to magically change things, but it is not. But once you do these steps, it feels magic. Correct. Then we are like, okay, because also we remember that we went through challenges before. So resilience is very important. Just like we are fragile, at the same time, we underestimate our own capacity to be resilient. Correct. We are very resilient as human beings and teenagers. So a lot of teenagers have gone through this, and a lot of teenagers will go through these.
So you got to trust the process. I mean, you say this all the time. You got to trust the process because everybody goes through in a different way and challenges. You will go through it and you'll get out of it.
Yes. So you will figure out the solutions. There's no formula, but there are certain guidelines. If you stick to it, you will find your own formula. So I don't know what it is. So for someone, maybe yoga, is something that will help. Maybe for someone, it is kickboxing that will work. Maybe for someone, it is dancing. For someone, it is playing the piano. What is your unique solution? Because you're a unique person. So your unique key, you will figure out and I can help you.
Right.
So it's really important that we find unique solutions because cookie cutter solutions will not
correct work. Because your situation is different. So
exactly. Yeah. So, but we are saying, okay, like we can share our own journeys and say, okay, maybe like for us, like for myself, if someone told me about Ayurveda, I was like, okay, that's not real. It's too old-fashioned or outdated and things. Sorry about that. Old-fashioned or outdated, but it's what it was at that time. Later, now I've gone to the other side and I'm open to this side.
Yoga, Ayurveda is the only way it works,
Exactly. So, and Ayurveda always said right from the beginning that we each have a unique combination and we are going to have unique solution. And now I'm able to appreciate it. So it's going to be also something that you might reject right now. So keep an open mind. So challenges your own beliefs. Look at everything, question it, because that's how you're going to really appreciate the nuances and the depth of anything.
So I love how you're differentiating how you treat a child where you give them the 5 C's and you're with it.
Exactly.
While teenagers, it's like you're accepting their uniqueness and you're inviting them in. So you were saying REA and then C and H?
H. So H is honor. Honor the whole process. Honor your own unique identity. Because we want to fit in, right? Which teenager wants to draw attention to themselves while looking different? They want to be like the crowd they hang out with. But it takes a lot of courage and a lot of self-awareness to honor that, hey, I'm very similar to you, but there are certain things that is not okay. So maybe, for example, like, it's okay now drinking, it's a touchy topic and it's unique to each one, so it's not like a good or bad thing. It is something that if you believe that you are okay, you don't want to try it, then honor that. And if someone is trying it, honor that. You don't want to put them down, oh, why you're trying it, or I don't want to hang out with you, or whatever. At the same time, you don't feel the pressure. If you believe that this is something that you don't want to try, you are okay with it, and honor that.
So what you're saying by honor is not judging, right? You don't judge
Yes.
yourself or others for what they
Exactly.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. So honor the whole, diversity. People are going to be different.
Correct.
They're going to try.
And you mentioned that we are all global citizens. Our kids are going to be global citizens. And you're going to be meeting all kinds of people from different cultures, genders, sexuality, all kinds of belief systems. And you will have to be accepting of all that. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, and that's
me. I just remembered suddenly, this is so true when you said, I mean, I did not have the acronym, obviously, when I talked to my daughter, but she was in California, and she was in college in California, where weed was something that was completely normalized and completely, it just infiltrated into the dorms. Forget outside the apartment, into the dorms. And there were those times, and she has talked to me about it, where the pressure was there. Should I try it? Should I do it? Should I? And then maybe, okay, I'll do it once, and then I'll say I don't want to continue with it. And those were those questions that she was alone, and she had to answer them alone. So she had to set those seeds earlier on in life.
Yeah. And so, like, so it's okay. So be okay with everything, because it is going to be different for each one of them. And we are going to be at different stages also, like, where we are like feeling the pressure, and then we can lean back. The reason why it is advocated a lot by parents, because some parents know the darker side, or they themselves they
know the consequences. And they are scared, they are worried.
So they're really, you are invested in your child, so you are really concerned that, hey, I don't want you to go through that pain and all those things. So having that conversation about your own struggle, that it wasn't easy, and it is something that's still not easy for me. So, like, for example, for someone, a certain aspect may not be still, like, which may be mostly normal, and that may not be normal. So let me just take a very broad example of, like, being a veg or non-veg. It can be something, it is very subjective.
Personal choice.
The personal choice.
And so you might feel, so it's not going to, be like, don't judge it, and understand why you want to do it, because it has to sound authentic.
It has to come from within.
Yes, it is not something that, it's a legacy that you're carrying over. It can also have elements of your own journey, that this is what I believe. And when we feel comfortable in our own skin, then no matter what challenges come, we are able to navigate them.
Correct.
And if we are not able to navigate, remind yourself it's a journey. Let me find out. So always be curious about finding out and learning more. So
I think what I'm hearing is that both parents as well as kids, they need to have a certain level of flexibility, openness, empathy for each other and each other's situation. Also, non-judgmental approach, collaborative approach. All of these things, I think, if we keep that in mind as parents, and to remind our children that, we've been through this phase of your life that you are in right now, and we can tell you with full confidence that you will go past it, you will survive, you will be okay. And even we will, as parents, be okay with whatever mistakes they will make, and whatever failures that they will face, whatever difficulties that they will face. As long as we normalize all of these things, I think
as long as the conversation is going on, we'll find the solution. We may not, I don't know how I might react to something which I have no idea about.
Correct.
So but the thing I promise you as a parent is, we'll figure it out.
We'll find. I think that's what children need, right? They just want to feel secure and safe, and loved,
Yes.
whether it is
Yes.
unconditionally or whether it is just, I know that I know my
Yes.
parents are there for me, and I
Yes.
have a support system. And I love what you said about community also, reaching out to the
Yes.
community, connecting
Yes.
with everybody. I think
Yes.
it's so important.
Very important.
And
Very important.
I hope that after this particular episode, a lot of parents, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions that will come.
I'm sure.
We will for sure share your email address with our audience. Any last words for all age group parents and what we are going to do right now, Parul?
So I think, like I said earlier, sometimes after doing all this, we can still run into trouble.
Yes.
And it's very important to remember that which is not a statement against us as parents, because no matter how much we try to balance out the whole thing, at the end of the day, we represent authority. So it is not going to be an even plane. So it is something, sometimes it's nothing to do with you. It's just that comfort level that I want to, as a kid, reach out to a neutral person and get that help or talk it out. So it's really important for parents to remember that, okay, now I'm doing everything right.
Yeah.
And now why did it go wrong? So it's very important to recognize that. Right. And second thing is, for parents is like, let's not become fanatic or obsessed about anything. Let's leave some room for being, spontaneous and surprises. Because, we can go overboard in either. So it's really important that, there are going to be some things that I can, most of the times,
and let's not take our children not doing well as a personal failure. I mean, I think that is a very big problem in this generation, where the parents feel that, oh, my child is not doing well, it's something that I have done wrong.
So understand you are not your child. So that identity needs to be
separated.
Separate. And I think it's harder for mothers because primarily they have been, right from conception to pregnancy and all that, they have a stronger bond. So the identity is almost merged. So when the distance gets created, you still are connected and you feel it's a reflection back.
Correct.
And I think you feel the pain, right? When they're trying to quote unquote cut the cord, right? You feel that pain. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we remember that, they're going to have their own journey in spite of our best effort. And that's okay. That's okay. Yeah.
And because our series is called the Imperfect Parenting. We try to tell the parents that, like what Parul said, is that it's okay, leave some things for some, let there be an element of spontaneity. Let there be some exploration, some mistakes, some failures. Let's not have this FOMO thing in our system. Let's get it out, because it's such a useless thought. I cannot be more blunt than that. But I think let's be open-minded. Let's be less judgmental. Let's have empathy for our children. Let's support them as much as we can.
Exactly, because sometimes some random person, people can come and, sometimes someone else has a role.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's really because only if we, we also encourage this exploration in terms of community, give them social experiences also, not just educational experiences, where they are meeting with someone who might teach them a life lesson, which is very powerful.
Absolutely.
And, or they might reiterate your life lesson.
Yep.
So it's important because earlier we had extended families and we had a lot of input. Now it has reduced, and because of pandemic, it has shrunken furthermore.
Yeah.
So now why are we reaching on technology is because we want to hear from people around.
Yes.
So having that social aspect also balanced into the day-to-day life is relevant. Because let's not, because we can underestimate the power of it by saying, okay, we'll connect through media or things like that.
Right.
We need to balance it with the real, because that's also equally important.
And that's what we should be very aware of. And I think that's really good tips. Yeah.
Very good. Great. I mean, it's been such an amazing conversation, Parul. We have to thank you
Thank you so much. Yes, I think I'm sure after this we're going to have a lot of questions and a lot of comments.
I'm sure.
And again, so wonderful to connect with you, Parul. I know you are in the United States, and this is the great thing about technology. While we bashed it a little, we are also going to say that technology has been very beneficial.
Very
a much wider audience. We are able to
Absolutely.
meet amazing guests like you. Thank you for being on our show, and we hope to be connected with you and talk to you more about some more aspects. And if parents have any other queries or any other angles that they want to discuss, we'd love to have Parul back on our Imperfect Parenting series. So thanks a lot, Parul.
Thanks a lot, Seema. Thanks a lot, Deepma.
And we'll see you guys next week with yet another episode of Imperfect Parenting. Until then, stay safe and be healthy. Bye.
Bye.